Alright guys, good morning and happy Friday. Figured I'd do one of these since it's the end of the week, and I meant to yesterday and I just kind of forgot. But we're going to finish up chapter 1 today. My cements will be on page 8. And if you read yesterday where we left off, really not that much happens in those first few pages. Basically, George and Lenny make camp, and you get the vibe that they're on their way to finding some new jobs. They're apparently on the run from this town called Weed, which you'll find out a bit more about that later. But they got run out of the last town that they were in. Because you're going to find out that even though he's got a heart of gold and he's so sweet, Lenny does have a tendency of causing trouble by accident. That's going to become a major thing here. In fact, you kind of see a little bit of that with Dead Mouse, like that Lenny's carrying around, because at some point that was probably a pet that he accidentally killed, and now he's carrying around with him. And so that tendency to accidentally hurt things around him, you'll see that as we go forward. So we're going to start on page 8. And so where we left off is George and Lenny just talking as the sun is going down, right before they're going to head into their new jobs the next day. And we'll get started at the top of page 8. George rolled on his side. No reason at all for you. I like it here. Come on, we're going to go to work. I've seen thrash machines on the way down. That means we'll be bucking grain bags, busting a gut. Tonight I'm going to lay right here and look up. I like it. Lenny got up on his knees and looked down at George. Ain't we going to have no supper? Sure we are. If you gather up some dead willow sticks, I got 3 cans of beans in my bindle. You get a fire together. I'll give you a match when you get the sticks together. And we'll heat the beans and have supper. Lenny said, I like beans with ketchup. Well, we ain't got no ketchup. You go get wood, and don't you fool around. It'll be dark before long. It's one thing I always think about when I read this book is just how George talks to Lenny, and I'm curious what you guys think about that, if it's a little too harsh or if you kind of get it. I don't know. Lenny lumbered to his feet and disappeared in the brush. George lay where he was and whistled softly to himself. There were sounds of splashing down the river in the direction Lenny had taken. George stopped whistling and listened. Poor bastard, he said softly, and went on whistling again. In a moment, Lenny came crashing back through the brush. He carried one small willow stick in his hand. George sat up. All right, he said brusquely. Give me that mouse. But Lenny made an elaborate pantomime of innocence. What mouse, George? I ain't got no mouse. George held out his hand. Come on, give it to me. You ain't putting nothing over. Lenny hesitated, backed away, looked wildly at the brush line, as though he contemplated running for his freedom. George said coldly, You gonna give me that mouse, or do I have to sock you? Give you what, George? You know goddamn well what. I want that mouse. Lenny reluctantly reached into his pocket. His voice broke a little. I don't know why I can't keep it. It ain't nobody's mouse. I didn't steal it. I found a lion right beside the road. George's hand remained outstretched imperiously. Slowly, like a terrier who doesn't want to bring a ball to its master, Lenny approached, drew back, and approached again. George snapped his fingers sharply, and at the sound, Lenny laid the mouse in his hand. I wasn't doing nothing bad with it, George. Just stroking it. George stood up and threw the mouse as far as he could into the darkening brush, and then he stepped to the pool and then washed his hands. You crazy fool! Don't you think I could see your feet was wet when you went across the river to get it? He heard Lenny's whimpering cry and wheeled about. Blubbering like a baby! Jesus Christ, a big guy like you! Lenny's lip quivered and tears started in his eyes. Oh, Lenny. George put his hand on Lenny's shoulder. I ain't taking it away just for meanness. That mouse ain't fresh, Lenny. And besides, you've broke it petting it. You get another mouse that's fresh, and I'll let you keep it a little while. Lenny sat down on the ground and hung his head dejectedly. I don't know why there is no other mouse. I remember a lady used to give them to me. Every one she got. But that lady ain't here. George scoffed. Lady, huh? Don't even remember who that lady was? That was your own Aunt Clara. And she stopped giving them to you. You always killed them. Liddy looked up sadly at him. "I was so little," he said apologetically. "I'd pet 'em, and pretty soon they bit my fingers, and I pinched their heads a little, and when they was dead, because they was so little. I wish we'd get the rabbits pretty soon, George. They ain't so little." "The hell with the rabbits, and you ain't to be trusted with no live mice. Your Aunt Clara give you a rubber mouse, and you wouldn't have nothing to do with it." "It wasn't no good to pet," said Lenny. The flame on the sunset lifted from the mountain tops, and dusk came into the valley, and a half darkness came in among the willows and the sycamores. A big carp rose to the surface of the pool, gulped the air, and sank mysteriously into the dark water again, leaving widening rings in the water. Overhead the leaves whisked again, and little puffs of willow cotton blew down and landed on the pool's surface. "You gonna get that wood?" George demanded. "There's plenty right up against the back of that sycamore, floodwater wood. Now you get it." Lenny went behind the tree and brought out a litter of dried leaves and twigs. He threw them in a heap on the old ash pile and went back for more and more. It was almost night now. A dove's wings whistled over the water. George walked to the fire pile and lighted the dry leaves. The flame cracked up among the twigs and fell to work. George undid his bindle and brought out 3 cans of beans. He stood them about the fire, close in against the blaze, but not quite touching the flame. "There's enough beans for 4 men," George said. Lenny watched him over the fire. He said patiently, "I like 'em with ketchup." "Well, we ain't got any," George exploded. "Whatever we ain't got, that's what you want. God almighty, if I was alone, I could live so easy. I could go get a job and work and no trouble, no mess at all. And when the end of the month came, I could take my $50 and go to town and get whatever I want. Why, I could stay in a cat house all night. I could any place I want, hotel or any place, and order any damn thing I could think of. And I could do all that every damn month. Get a gallon of whiskey or sit in a pool room and play cards or shoot pool." Lenny knelt and looked over the fire at the angry George, and Lenny's face was drawn with terror. "And what I got," George went on furiously, "I got you. You can't keep a job, and you lose me every job I get. Just keep me shoveling all over the country all the time. And that ain't the worst. You get in trouble. You do bad things, and I got to get you out." His voice rose to a nearly His voice rose nearly to a shout. "You crazy son of a bitch! You keep me in hot water all the time." He took on the elaborate manner of little girls when they are mimicking one another. "Just wanted to feel that girl's dress? Just wanted to pet it like it was a mouse? Well, how the hell do you know she just wanted to feel her dress? She jerks back and you hold on like it was a mouse. She yells and we gotta hide in an irrigation ditch all day with guys looking for us. And we gotta sneak out in the dark and get out of the country. All the time something like that. All the time. I wish I could just put you in a cage with about 1,000,000 mice and let you have your fun." His anger left him suddenly. He looked across the fire at Lenny's anguished face, and then looked ashamedly at the flames. So maybe you've already picked up on this, but real quick, that's what basically it's alluded to right there as far as what they did to get kicked out of that last town. So Lenny saw a woman wearing a dress. The dress looked soft, so Lenny went to go touch it. And the woman thought, obviously, that this man was like a groper. She was creeped out. I mean, if a strange big man went to go touch your clothes, you'd probably freak out too. But when she started to freak out, it scared Lenny, and so he just kind of kept grabbing onto the dress because he just didn't know what to do. And so basically, all these men in town thought that Lenny had attacked this woman, and so as a result, they ran him out of town. We'll see how Lenny reacts to that little outburst there, though. It was quite dark now, but the fire lighted the trunks of the trees and the curving branches overhead. Lenny crawled slowly and cautiously around the fire until he was close to George. He sat back on his heels. George turned the bean cans so that another side faced the fire. He pretended to be unaware of Lenny so close beside him. "George?" Very softly. No answer. "George? What do you want?" "I was only fooling, George. I don't want no ketchup. I wouldn't eat no ketchup if it was right here, right beside me. If it was here, you could have some. But I wouldn't eat none, George. I'd leave it all for you. You could cover your beans with it, and I wouldn't touch none of it." George still stared morosely at the fire. When I think of the swell time I could have without you, I go nuts. I never get no peace. Lenny still knelt. He looked off into the darkness across the river. George, you want I should go away and leave you alone? Where the hell could you go? Well, I could go. I could go off in the hills there, some place I'd find a cave. Yeah, how'd you eat? You ain't got sense enough to find to eat, nothing to eat. I'd find things, George. You don't need no nice food with ketchup. I'd lay out in the sun and nobody'd hurt me. And if I found a mouse, I could keep it. Nobody'd take it away from me. George looked quickly and searchingly at him. I've been mean, ain't I? If you don't want me, I can go off in the hills and find a cave. I can go away anytime. No, look, I was just fooling, Lenny, because I want you to stay with me. Trouble with mice is you always kill 'em. He paused. Tell you what I'll do, Lenny. First chance I get, I'll get you a pup. Maybe you wouldn't kill it. It'd be nice, better than mice, and you could pet it harder. Lenny avoided the bait. He had sensed his advantage. If you don't want me, you only just say so, and I'll go off in those hills right there, right up in those hills, and live by myself, and I won't get no mice stole from me. George said, I want you to stay with me, Lenny. Jesus Christ, somebody shoot you for a coyote if you was by yourself. No, you stay with me. Your Aunt Clara wouldn't like you running off by yourself, even if she is dead. Lenny spoke craftily. Tell me like you done before. Tell you what? About the rabbits? George snapped. You ain't gonna put a nothing over me. Lenny pleaded. Come on, George. Tell me, please, George, like you done before. You get a kick out of that, don't you? All right, I'll tell you. And then we'll eat our supper. George's voice became deeper. He repeated his words rhythmically as though he had said them many times before. Guys like us, they work on ranches, are the loneliest guys in the world. They got no family. They don't belong no place. They come to a ranch and work up a stake, and then they got to go into town and blow their stake. And the first thing you know, they're pounding their tail on some other ranch. They ain't got nothing to look ahead to. Lenny was delighted. That's it, that's it. Now tell us how it is with us. George went on. With us, it ain't like that. We got a future. We got someone to talk to that gives a damn about us. We don't have to sit in no bar room blowing in our jack just because we got no place else to go. If them other guys gets us in jail, they could rot for all anybody gives a damn. But not us. Lindy broke in. But not us. And why? Because I got you to look after me, and you got me to look after you, and that's why. He laughed delightedly. Go on now, George. You got it by heart. You can do it yourself. No, you. I forget some of the things. Tell him about how it's gonna be. Okay, someday we're gonna get the jack together. We're gonna have a little house and a couple of acres and a cow and some pigs and live off the fat of the land. Lenny shouted. And have rabbits. Go on, George. Tell about what we're gonna have in the garden, about the rabbits and the cages, and about the rain in the winter and the stove, and how thick the cream is on the milk, like you can hardly cut it. Tell about that, George. Why don't you do it yourself? You know all of it. No, you tell it. It ain't the same if I tell it. Go on, George. How I get to tend the rabbits? Well, said George, we'll have a big vegetable patch and a rabbit hutch and some chickens. When it rains in the winter, we'll just say to hell with going to work. And we'll build up a fire in the stove and sit around it and listen to the rain coming down on the roof. Nuts. He took out his pocket knife. I ain't got time for no more. He drove his knife through the top of one of those bean cans, sawed out the top, and passed the can to Lenny. Then he opened a second can. From his side pocket, he brought out 2 spoons and passed one of them to Lenny. They sat by the fire, filled their mouths with beans, and chewed mightily. A few beans slipped out of the side of Lenny's mouth. George gestured with his spoon. What are you going to say tomorrow when the boss asks you questions? Lenny stopped, chewing, and swallowed. His face was concentrated. I ain't gonna say a word. Good boy, that's fine, Lenny. Maybe you're getting better. When we get the couple of acres, I can let you tend the rabbits all right. Especially if you remember as good as that. Lenny choked with pride. Oh, I can remember, he said. George motioned with his spoon again. Look, Lenny, I want you to look around here. You can remember this place, can't you? The ranch is about a quarter mile up that way. Just follow the river. Sure, said Lenny. I can remember this. Did I remember about not saying that you're not going to say a word? Of course you did. Well, look, Lenny, if you just happen to get in trouble like you always done before, I want you to come right here and hide in the brush. Hide in the brush, said Lenny slowly. Hide in the brush till I come for you. Can you remember that? Sure I can. Hide in the brush till you come. But you ain't gonna get in no trouble because if you do, I won't let you tend the rabbits. He threw his empty bean can off into the brush. I won't get in no trouble, George. I ain't gonna say a word. Okay. Bring your bindle over here by the fire. It's gonna be nice sleeping here. Looking up into the leaves. Don't build up no more fire. We'll let it die down. They made their beds on the sand, and as the blaze dropped from the fire, the spear of light grew smaller. The curling branches disappeared, only a faint glimmer showed where the tree trunks were. From the darkness, Lenny called, George, you asleep? No, what do you want? Let's have different color rabbits, George. Sure we will, George said sleepily. Red and blue and green rabbits, Lenny, millions of them. Funny ones, George, like I seen the fair in Sacramento. Sure, furry ones. I can just as well go away, George, and live in a cave. You can just as well go to hell, said George. Shut up now. The red light dimmed on the coals. Up the hill from the river, a coyote yammered and a dog answered from the other side of the stream. The sycamore leaves whispered in a little night breeze. I just think that first chapter is kind of hilarious. And again, I think the dynamic between those two is what makes that book great. It only gets better, and we'll get into it next week. Until then, you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you guys later.